Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Roper Mountain Science Center. My name is Amanda Lenar, and I am the Community Engagement Specialist at Roper Mountain, and very excited to introduce our Natural Science Specialist, Tim Taylor, to talk to you about an endangered species success story and all about the alligators. And you may even meet a couple of our alligator friends today, and we hope to show you a live feeding. So let me welcome Tim on. Hi, Tim. Welcome aboard.
Hi, welcome.
And I'm going to let you take it from here, but I just wanted to let the audience know we are welcoming any questions, comments, and we will let Tim know and have him answer as he's able.
Great. Yes, my name is Tim Taylor, and I teach natural science here at Roper Mountain Science Center with Greenville County Schools. And we are in our ecology lab. And usually we have students here today, but I'm just glad to have you instead, since we can't have our students here today. And we are standing in front of our cypress swamp habitat display, which features the American alligator. Now, alligators are found from North Carolina to Texas. And here in South Carolina, if you look up at our map, they're found in our coastal plain area in the lower part of the state, as far north as Columbia, and all the way out to our coastal area, and even out on our barrier islands, we have the American alligator. Do you remember or have you seen an alligator in the wild here in South Carolina? I hope you've been treated by seeing an alligator in the wild. One of the best places to see an alligator is Huntington Beach State Park, where I worked 37 years ago doing alligator programs there. Now, we have ours in front of a cypress swamp, but they really like more sunny areas, like big lakes and rivers, and even near the marshes. They prefer fresh water, but yes, you can even find the adults in saltwater habitats. Now, before I get our young alligator out, which is called Snap, my grandsons had a chance to name him when I brought him here to the Science Center. I want to show you some things over here. Alligators haven't always been so common. In fact, in the 1950s and early 60s, and even before that, their population numbers were on the brink of extinction, mainly due to uncontrolled hunting and poaching for their skins and for their products. We have a few of these here at the table. These shoots says Crocodile, and these were in this belt says it's from a caiman, and these are products that were confiscated by the Fish and Wildlife Service at the Atlanta airport, brought in illegally. Maybe the people didn't know, but thank goodness that in 1967 they were protected under the Endangered Species Act, and protecting them from uncontrolled, again, hunting and poaching and habitat loss. Conservation efforts with the Endangered Species Act led to their recovery, and in just 20 years, they were taken off the Endangered Species Act. So they were one of our first success stories, along with the bald eagle. Did you know that tomorrow is Endangered Species Day, which we celebrate for those that and it has helped save a lot of our animals. Now, I'm going to get out because I know you've been waiting. We promised a live alligator, and I'm going to get out our young alligator and be telling you a little bit more about the American alligator. So this is Snap. He's still young enough and he's used to being held, so we use him in our educational programs. He is probably a little over 2 years old. We do have to have an alligator permit. We're an educational facility, but we do have to apply for a permit to have one. You can't have alligators for pets. You can't relocate them. That would be illegal. And this one came from one of our islands off of South Carolina, where they do herpetology work. And so I have contacts with herpetologists who study reptiles like alligators.
Mr. Taylor,
yeah.
Amos at home wants to know if Snap bites.
Any animal with a mouth can bite. He's got a bunch of little sharp teeth. Ever since we got him, and even before we got him, he was being used to being held. So I and some of our people here, we don't have to worry about him. He's used to being held. He's not wild. He hasn't tried to bite, but of course, always that's the possibility. And that's why I've got my thumb over his head, but I'm not holding it tight.
And could he survive in Greenville?
Oh, that is a good question. And I forgot to mention that. Remember, looking up at our state map, they are not found in our upstate. It's just too cold. The water and the air temperatures, and it's also too cold for the incubation of the eggs. They also need it to be warm to digest their food. Now, some alligators have been relocated, I'm sure illegally brought up, and they can live, but they cannot naturally reproduce, and they wouldn't be able to survive in their life cycle because it's just too cold here in the upstate. Now, when they are born, of course, their eggs, goose size, tough leathery eggs, are laid in a nest. And we're going to show you what a nest looks like. It's a mound of vegetation and mud and leaf litter, and she will laid and made near the edge of a wetland or water, and she will lay 20 to 60 eggs. Look at all those eggs that was laid with the mound in the nest that was made by the female. Now, right now, males and females are courting each other, and then in June, she's probably going to make the nest and lay the eggs. Now, this guy, we don't know whether it's a male or female because it's not an adult, and even then, it's hard to tell. Males are quite a bit larger, but this one came from a clutch size of a little over 20 eggs. And this nest was too close, and the hatchlings were too close to a saltwater impoundment. Now, it's making a little noise that a young one still make. You might not think it's a young one, but it's still making a noise that they would make, and the female, the mother, would keep up with them with that noise and know where they're at. So a little bit about the nest and eggs. A little over 60 days after the eggs are laid, they hatch. And we call the little babies, as you can see on our graphic, hatchlings. They hatch out of the eggs. And the mother will hear them, and she will carry them to the water in her mouth gently. She is a gentle mother, and she will protect the eggs and the hatchlings. Do you see the stripes on a young alligator? That's how you can tell that they're still kind of young. They have those stripes, which will slowly disappear. Now, a lot of their nests are getting into by predators, and a lot of the eggs might be eaten by predators, like raccoons and other animals. And even a lot of the hatchlings don't make it as adult. They become food for other animals. So it's tough to survive in the wild. But the female, the mother, protects them up to 2 to 3 years until they're able to fend for themselves and be big enough. Now, in the wild, I'm going to show you behind me an osprey, a big bird, and I've seen ospreys prey upon alligators. Imagine instead of a fish, a young alligator in their talons. Because I've seen osprey, I know in our cypress swamp display, we show an otter and a bobcat, and they are predators of the young. Do you see the bobcat? And the otter. But again, mother does a usually good job in protecting the hatchlings. Little ones would feed mostly upon insects and invertebrates in the water. Any questions about the eggs or the nest or the hatchlings? So they are usually 6 to 8 inches of birth, and they grow about 6 to 8 inches a year till they get up to about 5 or 6 feet, and then it's a slower growth. And when they get to be about 5 or 6 feet, they're basically an adult. Now the males get much bigger than the females. The males get average 8 to 10 feet, and some of our largest alligators are males that are around 12 to 13 feet. The females, not as large, 6 to 8 feet. They usually average around 8 feet. Now, the largest alligator, I believe, found in the United States and recorded was a little over 18 feet in Louisiana. And I believe in South Carolina, maybe our one was a little over, I don't know whether it's some 14 to 16 feet. But South Carolina has a lot of alligators, thanks to the Endangered Species Act. And some of the largest alligators are in South Carolina. And a lot of them are out on our barrier islands. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some adaptations. And again, I hope some of you have some questions. There's a lot of misunderstandings and misinformation about alligators. But what do you think might help this alligator to survive in the water, where they spend most of their time?
Mr. Taylor,
What might help it swim?
Mr. Taylor, someone wants to know what a person should do if they see an alligator.
What do they do? Oh, great question. Don't freak out. You don't have to be scared. First of all, don't freak out. Stay a safe distance away, and you are going to be fine. Do not feed alligators. They lose their fear of man and they get close, and that's where we have some of our problems. Don't get close to an alligator. They will leave you alone if you leave them alone. Alligator attacks are rare. Good question. I always think that you're lucky if you see an alligator in the wild. So many people from up north come south hoping to see an alligator, and they remember where they first saw their alligator. What do you think helps it swim? Look at that long tail. It's even flat on the sides. like an oar to help it swim. It propels it in the water. What else do you think might help it to survive in the water? Look at the webbed feet. Look where the eyes are placed, and look where the nostrils are. The eyes are on top, so it can look out of the water and still stay under. Did you know, and we say this on the display here, that on their snouts are hundreds of pressure sensors or bumps that can detect just a slight little ripple in the water to help them maybe find food or avoid danger. Look at the jaws. Look at the teeth to grab a hold and catch prey. Very strong and powerful.
How does the alligator see in the water?
Oh, good question. How many of you, when you're in the water, wear swimmer goggles? Well, they have something like that. It's called a nictitating membrane. And so that's kind of like a swimmer's goggles. And that enables them to still see underneath the water. And they even have valves that can close in their throat. And they can stay in the water for a long period of time. They are adapted to do that. Now, sometimes when it gets cold, they have a neat behavior. There might be a name to this, but before the water freezes, they come up with just their nostrils out of the water, and the water might end up being frozen around them, but they can still breathe. I've seen photos of that, just with their nostrils.
And can you share with us the difference between the alligator and the crocodile?
Good question. First of all, the alligator, its status is still threatened. It's still threatened. It's still protected because of its similar appearance with the American crocodile. Now, one of the differences is, again, if you look at the snout, alligators have wide, rounded snouts. Crocodiles have long, narrow snouts. When the mouth is closed, you don't see any of the bottom teeth showing up in an alligator, but in a crocodile you would. Crocodiles are usually lighter in color. We do not have crocodiles around here. You have to go to the tip of Florida, Everglades, Florida Keys, and they still are endangered. And that's really the only place to find American crocodiles. Good question. Now, a little bit about the diet of the bigger alligators. Since they're so big, we're going to let Mr. Riddle, our assistant director who's filming, show the red-eared sliders, because they're one of the few animals that can crush the shell of a big water turtle, of a big slider. They feed mostly on fish. They can feed upon snakes and birds, and yes, even mammals and bigger mammals. But they don't go around eating people. Now, you might think, why are alligators important? Well, being at the top of the food chain, they help keep those prey populations in check, in control. And you might not know, but during drought and dry periods, they make underwater holes, and that provides water during dry seasons for many other animals. They are very important in their ecosystem. Sometimes they're called a keynote species because so many other animals depend upon them. They are that important. Can you think of any other adaptations? Now, they have these claws because they can move on land. And they do have to get out of the water. And they can even move fast, short distances out of the water. But they're made to live in the water. Now, one of the strangest things I saw in a wildlife magazine, speaking of little ones, hatchlings and predators, even a big fish or a snake can actually prey upon a little hatchling. Any other questions?
Have you mentioned how long the average alligator lives?
Great question. 30 to 50 years, sometimes older, so they have a long lifespan. And they can, females can even reproduce, even when they're over 40 years old. So, now, I'm going to put Snap up because I'm going to attempt. I'm not the animal caretaker. He is off today. If you come by the Science Center and if you ever see Mr. Dave, he worked with crocodiles at the San Diego Zoo. So, but he is not here today, but we're going to feed the bigger alligator, which I helped secure. And it's probably around 5 years old. 4 or 5 years old. And did you know that staying a safe distance away, if you measure their distance from the end of the nose to the eyes, whatever that estimate is in inches, make that feet, and you can estimate the size of an alligator just that way. So that looks like maybe that's close to 2.5, 3 inches. So maybe 2.5, 3 feet. This one, maybe 1.5 feet or so. Now, I forgot to mention that the incubation temperatures determine the gender. And in alligators, we have a did you know down at the bottom of the nest that below 87 degrees produce only females, while temperatures between 90 to 91 degrees Fahrenheit produce only males. Now, other reptiles, it's opposite, like the sea turtle. Now, I forgot to mention, you probably have noticed, we have a common snapping turtle inside the display too that lives in the same habitat. And I'm glad they get along. But sometimes when it's feeding time, they fight over the food. So they mostly, even bigger alligators, mostly feed on fish. So we're going to see if we can get this alligator to eat.
We have a question asking, what is the alligator eating right now?
Fish, pieces of fish. I would think he would be interested. Oh, there he goes. And again, we don't know whether it's a he or she. He or she is well fed.
Do they always get out of the water to eat?
What was that?
Do they always get out of the water to eat?
Oh, I'm not for sure if I heard that question, but usually the alligator will get out of the water to eat. I don't think it has to, but usually it does.
And how much do you feed the alligator each day?
Being ectothermic, which means cold-blooded, but since we're herpetologists today, we say they're ectothermic. That means they can't maintain a constant body temperature, so to warm up, they need to find a warm place. But also that's an advantage. They can go long periods without feeding in the wild. But here at Roper Mountain Science Center, we feed them a couple of times a week.
And Evan at home wants to know if the alligators go to the bathroom.
Yes, they do. All animals have to be able to eliminate their waste. And yes.
And we also have the question of when can you tell the gender of an alligator?
I'm sorry, we couldn't hear that one, Amanda.
When can you tell the gender of an alligator?
Okay. When they get to be about 4 or 5 feet, herpetologists have to do an internal probe. Now, I'm sure the alligator doesn't like that to figure out the gender, but remember, we can usually tell when they're adults and big in size, the males are bigger. And the males during courtship right now will roar out and bellow out to attract the female.
And another question about alligator bathroom habits. We'd like to know about Alligators Scat.
Could you repeat that one again?
Yes,
Amanda?
our audience wants to know about Alligators Scat.
I don't think they would leave behind much visible scat. You would see evidence of that, but it wouldn't be real visible scats like a mammal or something. Now, I'm going to feed, because I'm feeling a little sorry for the snapping turtle, I'm going to feed the snapping turtle. So even though we're featuring the alligator, if you have questions about the snapping turtle also, does anybody want to share where they have seen and been lucky enough to see an alligator in the wild? You don't have to go to Florida, remember. We have a lot of them here in South Carolina. I think we're lucky. Any other questions for us in front of our Cypress Swamp display? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this American alligator presentation. When we do reopen, you can find it here in the Ecology Lab. And I am so grateful, and I hope you are too, for the Endangered Species Act and laws that protect and help conserve our wildlife. Glad to have you here in this classroom. I've been missing folks.
We have a couple of comments. Alligators that have been found on Hilton Head Island, and at Bulls Island.
Oh, great. Bulls
And-
Island is one of the largest alligators. Great.
And a question about what is the most common reason that alligators die?
Well, today their biggest threat is habitat loss of wetlands being drained and developed. Since they're such a success story, there is limited hunting now for the alligators, but it is controlled hunting. See you, folks.
Thank you so much for being with us today. We hope to see you back here next week for our next Thoughtful Thursday series.